Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us on-site and online. My name is Louise Guillot. I'm a sustainability reporter with POLITICO Europe. Welcome to today's panel discussion, where we're going to discuss how to accelerate the EU's transition to a more circular economy, and especially looking at how companies can integrate sustainability into the very design of their products. Before we go on with the panel discussion, one quick housekeeping remark. You will be able to ask questions, but only for the participant on site. So please already start thinking about what you want what you'd like to ask our speakers. So I will come to you right at the end of our discussion. I'll make sure I keep time for that. So for today's panel, I'm pleased to be joined by MEP Sarah Mathieu of the Greens, Belgian MEP. Thank you. I also have on stage Ioana Popescu, Head of Circular Economy at the Environmental Coalition on Standards in Angel. Welcome. Mercedes Alonso, Executive Vice President for Renewable Polymers and Chemicals at the international company Neste, and a board member of the Chemical Industry Association, CEFIC, and our last speaker on this panel, but not least, Aurel Ciobanu Dordea, Director for Circular Economy at the European Commission, DG Environment. Please
Good morning.
Join me. So thank you very much, the four of you, for coming in this morning. Before we jump into the discussion, I'll just want to give our audience a few pointers about the eco-design for sustainable product regulation, which is the main topic and file that we're going to talk about today. So the proposal was presented in March and is a key element of the European Green Deal, and really aims to address the circular economy aspect of the Green Deal. And the proposal really aims to make sure that products become consumer goods become more sustainable, but also go a little bit beyond that. So the regulation proposes to set horizontal requirements for a wide range of products, from smartphone, tablets, but also solar panels, and also in the future, other consumer goods like textile and chemicals, steel, furniture, even. So we're going to talk about this in a minute. And so that's indeed one of the big novelties, to go beyond just energy-related products. But the Commission is also asking companies, or at least wants to ask companies in its proposal, to disclose how many unsold goods they destroy each year, and if that's not a big enough incentive, that maybe look into an EU-wide ban on the destruction of unsold goods in the future. So with that, I'd like to start with MEP Sarah Mathieu. First, and if you could maybe tell us a little bit where we're at in the European Parliament. The discussion have just slowly started. The IMCO committee and the ITRE committee have put out the draft opinion report, but in the ENVI committee, which is leading the discussion on this file, it's still very much in the infancy, but I'd be keen to hear, your thoughts about the proposal and what, especially as a member of the Green Group, what you'd like to see changed and amended in the Commission's proposal.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks for having me. I have to say that it's really exciting to be able to negotiate such an important part of legislation on behalf of the Greens. And well, you've mentioned it. Of course, eco-design, it exists already, and I think that a lot of people are not aware that the fact that we have this eco-design regulation specifically on energy has already had a huge impact. I mean, of course, we all know the scores on refrigerators, washing machines, etc., and that has had a huge impact really on our emission targets and on the reduction of our energy uses. And I think it's really super exciting that now we are going to broaden the scope, both product-wise, but also broaden the scope when it comes to circularity. And I really think it can be a game changer. But of course, even though I'm super happy with the proposal, there's always things that can be ameliorated. And I think one of those things, we have certain principles, of course, in circularity strategies, but there's no real hierarchy yet in the proposal. Maybe to use an example to make it more clear why I think this is really important. For instance, you could say a certain product will score very well on recyclability. Okay, that sounds nice, that's important. For instance, look at the textile industry. This is one of the sort of products that will indeed be touched upon by this legislation. But if you just put the emphasis on recycling and you don't actually make sure that your products are more durable, that your products are repairable, then you're not tackling the root causes of the problem, for instance, we have with fast fashion. I mean, then you get, again, very poorly made products that are recycled. Okay, but that's still a huge waste of resources, of energy, of material. So I really think we need a hierarchy in those recycling strategies to make sure that durability, that repairability, etc., really comes to the forefront. I think we will have a discussion also on the digital products passport, which is a great idea, both from the consumer side, but also for the side of businesses that want to refurbish, recycle, repair, etc. But it's already clear we will have a bit of a discussion on the amount of information that will be shared.
Yeah, you know. And we'll come to that topic in a minute.
And then maybe two other things. You mentioned the unsold goods. I don't know if everyone is aware, but right now there's tons and tons of stuff just being incinerated or recycled in the best of worlds. And I think that's absolutely crazy. So I'm glad that the Commission is tackling it, but I don't think it will suffice to really just have more transparency on it. I think we need a ban on the destruction of those unsold goods. And then maybe lastly, the Commission is also proposing a lot of voluntary agreements. I think that's a very bad idea. We've seen in the past that this really doesn't work. I think we need to tackle the root cause, why the Commission is actually putting that forward, and that is really just the fact that they have not enough resources, not enough people to tackle it themselves. So those are some of the things that I would like to change. But as you said, in the Environmental Committee, we haven't started yet. So I will be very, intrigued to see what my colleagues think of all of that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I'll go just to Joanna to ask you if you think the proposal is, going far enough in reducing the barriers to eco-design that are in place today, and or if you agree with certain points that Sarah made.
Yes, I think tentatively I can agree with a lot of what Sarah Mathieu has said. I think to put it into the wider perspective, the idea of the circular economy is on one hand ensuring that we have more efficient, material efficient, resource efficient, energy efficient products, and on the other hand is about ensuring that the circular economy actually fits with planetary boundaries. And this is two elements that need to be thought of structurally together, because if we don't, we are going to improve maybe slightly the products that we see on the market, but we're not going to ensure that these products are actually helping us achieve our climate commitments, our biodiversity loss or not loss commitments, and other environmental objectives that we have at European level, but also global level. So it's important to not dissociate making products more efficient from actually ensuring that we are fitting with planetary boundaries. And it's needless to say that today we are crossing very regularly at least 3 of them, and this is something that we need to calculate and compose with, and that ideally in the methodology that the Commission is going to develop is going to ensure that the measures that we are bringing forward for potentially all products on the market, and are helping us and enabling us to reach and fit with this budget that we have, which is our planet, that we need to respect, and its natural resources as well.
Yeah, and I remember when the proposal came out, ECOS was also criticizing that the Commission did not put a clear target on material reduction,
Absolutely.
the reduction of the material footprint. So Aurel, I'd like to turn to you and ask you, Sarah Mathieu talked about the fact that there is no really hierarchy in the proposal. So I'd like to give you the floor to reply to this criticism and the gaps that have been identified by our two previous speakers.
Yeah, well, I think that the purpose maybe of the exchanges on today's panel is not to make public the negotiations that we will have with the European Parliament and with the Council in the trilogue. But it should suffice if I would say that we are taking good note of a number of suggestions which are made by the European Parliament, and a lot of them are very valuable and made in a constructive spirit in order to improve the text. We have listened also with utmost attention to what the members of the Council, the member states, have commented, some fears that they have expressed as well, and we are processing this rather fast in order to prepare for the discussions that are still ahead of us. And our, however, general message is that both quality and speed are important, and we are very grateful to the current presidency of the Council, the Czech presidency, for having lent its support, active support, to advance this file. I hope very much the incoming Swedish presidency has said the same, and they are very experienced members of the Council, and we count on their support. In any case, we hope very much that maybe even before the summer next year we have this adopted. Why it's so important, and why I am not just procedural? It is important because this proposal for a regulation is meant to be a framework which lays down a number of compass for developments which are product-specific or horizontal, which are to be laid down subsequently according to the hierarchy of principles, which will be defined by the regulation and other elements in the regulation. This is where the change will start to bite in reality, and we need to put already effort in the Commission on a couple of parallel tracks with the negotiations. The preparation of the work program for the implementation of the SPR, and in order to be able to show to the industry, to the consumers, to the non-governmental organizations, to the member states, to the political institutions of the European Union, which we think are the priority products or materials, because you have mentioned a number of products, but you can think also about intermediate substances like steel or aluminium, which constitute a priority of this work program. And the other...
Sorry, on this point, because in March the Commission said that by the end of this year they will come up with that list,
and
put a
we
consultation.
will come up.
And so is that
more
on track?
likely at the beginning, this is what we would like. We are working hard with our colleagues from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission in order to fine-tune now we put the last touches on the document which will outline the work program, which will bring to public attention at the beginning of next year. Okay. And the next parallel strand, which is equally important and which is meant to make things happen in reality, is the preparation of the digital product passport. And while this will operate in a decentralized way, Some preparatory measures are necessary at the level of the European Commission, but also we may need to interact with the member states or with the industry in order to make this, because this will have to work from day one. When we will come with the first delegated act, which, by the way, is promised to be on textiles by the textile strategy, which was adopted earlier this year by the Commission. We promised that we will come with the first delegated act on textiles. So when we will come with that, those rules on sustainability and circularity for textiles, the digital product passport must be working.
When can we expect this delegated act on textile?
Well, in 2024, this is the commitment made in the textile strategy.
Okay, so Mercedes, I'd like to talk to you because indeed Aurel mentioned the digital product passport, but I'd like to hear, what is it like for you in your company when we talk about eco-design? What does that mean in practice, and also will this regulation change for you and how you conduct your business, how you develop new products, and what could be also the role of the digital product passport here? Like, do you see this as a big burden or rather a good tool that will, help also in the recycling, in the uptake of recycled material, for example?
Thank you. Yeah, and today I also represent in CEFIC and the chemical industry, so pretty much also looking at materials and particular plastics and other materials for all these products. I think when we're looking at the eco-design, it has the potential to be, like you said, also a real game changer. And with that, we need to also consider that when we are starting looking at designing, we are talking about completely new materials. So it's going to be very, very important that we just create a framework for a new market for these secondary raw materials, which is what we need to design those products. So like you said, when we have achieved a lot of progress already on energy, materials has a much longer value chain, much more complex, so we need to be very pragmatic about how do we enhance the collecting and sorting, for example, on plastics. And I heard this morning also Katerina talking about the PET, which is a very well-functioning one. We need to extend it to a much more wider variety of materials, particularly on the plastic waste. We need to also work together with academia, with regulatory bodies, the industry, together also with consumers, with all of us, to continue incentivizing the right behaviors and being demanding of materials that are basically replacing fossil products, so that we are looking as well at the potential of lowering emissions. And that's also like the discussion that you were having on glass versus plastic, not taking things that too simple, but really looking at the benefit that these materials have, not only from an end-of-life point of view. And then to your question as well on the digital product passport, again, an enormous potential is a very good beginning. It's not a silver bullet that is going to cover everything. And I think we need to look at it, how can we make it pragmatic and workable across all that value chain? Because it has an enormous potential to help us with the transparency and the traceability that we need to follow those materials to make sure that we are enhancing circular economy, but it needs to be workable, because this value chain is extremely complex, has a lot of points, and we are not used actually to a circular economy. We need to make sure that all these parts of the chain work together to bring these new materials back in circulation. But overall, we see that as a very positive drive. We are very proud of the ambition that we are seeing in the EU to move this forward, and we think that we have all the tools in our hand also in the EU Commission to make this happen. Now it's focusing on the framework and giving us the tools to make it practicable and quick.
So on the digital product passport, I'd like to go a little bit further on this and turn to you, Joanna, because indeed the Commissioner said this can help bring new information to consumers, make sure that they are able to compare products and make sure they make the sustainable choice. But does that really put also the burden on the shoulder of the consumers to be like, okay, I need to go with the most sustainable product? And also, does that mean that maybe these more sustainable products will stay affordable as well? Because indeed that is a big challenge, because it requires investment in research and development, and that obviously has a cost for companies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the point you made about shifting the burden to consumers is a very valid one. I think first and foremost, this regulation aims at tackling manufacturers, and they have the onus and the responsibility of providing consumers with better choices that are more sustainable. So the shift that is being done is more on the manufacturer's side than on the consumer side. I'd also like to highlight something that relates to the circular economy principles that Sarah Mathieu was mentioning. The idea of recovering a lot of material is a good one, and I agree it is part of a circular economy, but it's essentially the least that we can do. Recycling is basically the basis for circular economy, so there is no getting extra credit for capturing a material stream. The fact is also that at least a third of everything that is found in waste collection centers and that is then going to landfill and recycling should actually be going to reuse. That is at least a third of all material that is captured today. That's something that we need to work on, because in the order of the circular economy hierarchy, reuse, repair, preparation for reuse rank much higher than recycling. So that's something that needs to be put back into perspective, and then also with regards to ensuring that all stakeholders are enabled to participate in the transition. We need to make a lot of space for repairers, independent repairers as well, social economy actors, reuse operators, providers of reverse logistics, etc. Infrastructure. It's very important to ensure that we are giving the right people the right space. And then when it comes to the digital product passport, when it comes to consumer choice, of course, having information is very valuable. But in the end, what the DPP will also help is having actually a record of what products are made of, where they came from, what materials do they have, etc. And this element today we are not capturing so well, so the DPP will help in that. And from our perspective, it will also be useful for decision makers to actually have data to base new regulation on.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, I'd like also to have your thoughts on this and on the, keeping these products affordable as well for consumers. What kind of safeguards can the legislator as well put in place for that, if any?
No, I mean, I agree with what you said when it comes to consumer responsibility. Of course, what we want to do is have, the design of products in a different way, and in that sense, to put more responsibility on the manufacturers. But it's not just a question of responsibility. I think that this passport, for instance, can really be enormously helpful to some business models. For instance, last week I went to this startup where they have actually designed a sort of yarn that can dissolve at a certain temperature. That's super interesting if you want to indeed not just shred clothes, but actually have the different parts, and then you can reuse and refurbish. But of course, you need to identify those pieces of clothing with that yarn. And in that sense, something like a digital passport, for instance, is hugely important to them. But also for consumers, even though I don't think it's just a consumer responsibility indeed. I'm a bit disappointed, maybe to add to that, the Commission was supposed to come up also with a proposal on green claims to make sure that all the different labels that are out there, couldn't use certain claims anymore, greenwashing, but we are still waiting for that. When it comes to affordability, I think, for instance, tools like the repair score could be really important, where people can really know, okay, if I'm buying this product at a certain cost, will it be repairable? Will there be spare parts? Or will it just, break in 2 years, as a lot of our products are, unfortunately, at the moment? I think this whole regulation also opens up more business opportunities when it comes to not owning stuff. And in that sense, it can be a lot cheaper, for instance, if you look at mobility, you don't have to own a car. You can actually have a car sharing system. If you look at a washing machine, perhaps it's better not to own the thing, but just to lease it. So in that sense, affordability also comes into the picture.
I don't, Mercedes, if you also wanted to comment on that question and the impact very much on industry as well, in shifting also the extra cost of this transition to more sustainability onto consumers.
Yeah, I think that we spend a lot of time on seeing where things to be happening, and I truly believe that it happens in everywhere, because exactly as you say, we as consumers have a responsibility to continue demanding also more sustainable products, and the industry is also, particularly when we're looking at the chemicals or plastics, we are not shying away of the part that is a substantial one to be done. But we need to look at all those things and how complementary they are, because I absolutely agree with the ranking of, reducing the amount of, say, packaging that we're having and how we reuse that it can be reused and not be dismissed. But it's unavoidable. We're going to be talking about waste streams, and then recycling needs to be enhanced. And at that point, also, it's clear that we will need to invest more to have better recycling facilities, where there's also mechanical new technologies that is going to be also contributing to recycle more and incinerate less and having less emissions. And at the same time as well, I think there is an open opportunity to look at how we are increasing the recycled content, and we have very ambitious targets, but how we continue also replacing the raw materials that we're using away from fossil resources, because it's a great opportunity, again, for the industry and for us as people to lower emissions. So overall, I think that is less about what we do in one area and the other, but it's what we have to do in all the different areas. And reducing and recycling and reusing, they are all having to have a part and contribute to be enhanced.
Mm-hmm. And we're almost, I'm looking at the clock, we're almost to reaching the end, and we'll come to the Q&A part in a few minutes. But before we do, I would like to turn to you, Aurel, because when the Commission presented the proposal back in March, it said that its implementation will require a lot of new staff. In the Commission, there's been reports also that it's been difficult for the Commission so far to fully implement the current rules, and it will need more staff to implement the new rules in the future. So how is that going? How is the staffing issue being resolved in the Commission on this?
Well, we don't comment in public about issues which are internal cuisine of the Commission, but I would like in exchange to express my gratitude to our supporters, the supporters of our agenda, of the Green Agenda, and to reassure both the MEPs and the NGOs, and I think also the industry, because the industry was very much supporting this, that the proposal for a directive on green claims will come, but it only, I mean, there are obviously different debates, sometimes ideological. I think it is normal. It will set some standards, so it has been delayed, and it's a French proverb, reculer pour mieux sauter. So we prepare to jump on the bandwagon at the beginning of next year.
Yeah, and the European Commissioner for Environment, Mr. Sienkiewicz, said yesterday in the ENVI committee that it will be delivered in the very start of 2023. So we hope it will. Last question before we turn to your questions in the room. To talk a little bit also about the social dimension of sustainability, because one of the criticisms that was also made when the proposal came out was that when we talk about sustainability, it's not only about recycled content or how durable or repairable a product is, but also how it's being manufactured. So maybe, Joanna, I'd like to hear your thoughts about this and how this regulation can be maybe amended or improved, changed, to also capture that social dimension of sustainability as well.
Yeah, I think so. The stated ambition is to make sustainable products the norm, and this to have a positive trickle-down effect also down global value chains. So the idea being that many of our products being manufactured outside of Europe, we have a responsibility in ensuring that these are manufactured in good conditions. we have this power of creating the demand for products that have been developed and produced in good conditions. And so I would like to highlight the impact that this has on local communities, and on the fact that if, for example, we still accept substances of concern being part of our value chains, it means that workers outside of Europe will be faced with handling these substances of concern, and most often they might not have the protective equipment that we have in Europe. Most often they might not be protected by social welfare the same way that we are here in Europe. So we have this responsibility of including into the sustainability agenda also the social dimension, and in ensuring that our demand in Europe actually has this positive ripple down effect that we're hoping to create with this regulation.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know, Mrs. I saw you nodding.
Yeah, I think also at Neste we see that sustainability, you need to write it with a big S. And exactly as you say, where we have an enormous focus, obviously, on emissions and on plastic waste, for example. There are a lot of other targets about looking at inequality, working conditions, fair wages. And that's also something that I think that in Europe we can reinforce in some of those circles, or enabling that industry in the right conditions is something that I think that the EU can also, promote even more, as we are doing, I think, in many of the companies already. So fully agree with you.
Perfect. And with that, I'd like to turn to our Q&A session. So we'll now take questions from the audience. Yes, very good. I think there is like a small transition before, yes, little jingle.
This is an age of disruption, of profound revolutionary change.
What we're really asking ministers is to empower the ambassadors.
The only thing that you really push forth is the truth.
You don't see many women represented when it comes to the decisions as to how to handle the pandemic.